Sergeant First Class James Wilkinson, Australian Army Special Operations Command, would later tell his superior officers that the mission briefing had felt wrong from the start. His report, buried in classified archives, begins with this observation. On August 15, 2023, a 6-person reconnaissance team from the 2nd Commando Regiment received orders to investigate what command classified as a potential non-state actor encampment in the remote Tanami Desert. Intelligence suggested unusual activity near abandoned mining infrastructure 156 kilometers northwest of Yuendumu. Satellite imagery had detected heat signatures inconsistent with known wildlife patterns and possible evidence of territorial markings. The team included Wilkinson, communications specialist, Captain Eliza Roth, team leader, Lieutenant Dane McCormick, medic, Staff Sergeant Omar Khoury, tracker, Corporal Leah Nguyen, drone operator, and Lance Corporal William Billy Tyler, marksman. All were veterans of multiple deployments, though none had significant desert warfare experience outside Afghanistan. Their briefing packet contained an unusual addendum, a 2009 Desert Research Station log outlining unidentifiable tracks and acoustic anomalies, plus a hastily transcribed Warlpiri legend about a creature called Sukura, a shapeshifter that guarded sacred territories. Command had flagged this information as potential local context for irregular behavior patterns, nothing more. The team deployed via 2 MRH-90 Taipan helicopters at 0430 hours, touching down at 0612 in a dry creek bed 18 kilometers from the target area. Standard kit was supplemented with enhanced thermal imaging, audio surveillance equipment, and extra water rations. The operational parameters were clear, observation only, with strict instructions to avoid engagement unless directly threatened. At 0645, they began their approach, moving in staggered formation beneath a sky that transitioned from night's navy blue to the scorched orange of approaching day. The temperature rose with each passing hour, soon reaching 40 degrees Celsius. The landscape unfurled before them, a sea of red sand punctuated by spinifex grass and the occasional twisted desert oak. Khoury noticed it first. As they progressed deeper into the desert, wildlife sounds diminished. No insects buzzing, no birds calling. The wind moved across the dunes, creating a faint, hollow whistle through the spinifex, a sound Wilkinson would later describe as air moving through empty bones. By midday, they reached their first observation point. Nguyen deployed a micro-drone for preliminary surveillance, but the feed showed nothing except heat distortion and sand. The team established a temporary position and waited for nightfall, when thermal imaging would be most effective. As the sun began its descent, Khoury discovered the first anomalous tracks, 4 toed impressions with a distinct heel mark, spaced nearly a meter apart. They resembled dingo prints, but at human scale and with a bipedal gait. According to his field notes, Khoury attempted to radio this information to command, but encountered interference, a high-pitched whine that made coherent transmission impossible. What followed over the next 72 hours would challenge every assumption about what exists in Australia's most isolated regions, and why some places remain empty of human settlement, despite all modern technology and determination. This is their story, compiled from after-action reports, recovered equipment, and the sole survivor's testimony. Captain Roth ordered the team to establish a defensible position as darkness fell across the desert. The temperature plummeted, forcing them to zip up their tactical jackets. They set up a perimeter of motion sensors in a 30-meter radius around their encampment, with Lieutenant McCormick logging environmental readings on his tablet. Barometric pressures dropping fast, McCormick noted, frowning at his device. Doesn't match forecasted conditions. Wilkinson monitored comms, attempting to clear the persistent interference. The static had a rhythm to it, rising and falling like labored breathing. When he isolated the frequency, He discovered it wasn't mechanical, but organic in pattern. "Could be atmospheric," he suggested, though his expression betrayed doubt. "Or something local playing havoc with our equipment." As Corporal Nguyen prepped the night surveillance drone, Lance Corporal Tyler swept the perimeter with thermal imaging. The scanner registered cold spots that shouldn't have existed in the terrain, patches where temperature dropped by 15 degrees without explanation. "Got something," Tyler announced, voice tense but controlled. "Movement at bearing 214, approximately 400 meters out." Curry joined him, adjusting his own thermal scope. "Signature's too big for a dingo, too small for a vehicle." "Bipedal?" Roth asked. "Affirmative, but the gates, wrong." Curry traced the movement with his finger. "Too fluid, like it's gliding rather than walking." Roth signaled for comms discipline and had the team switch to night vision. The desert transformed into a landscape of green shadows. Stars pierced the cloudless sky with unusual brightness, casting weak illumination across the dunes. Wind stirred the spinifex, creating wavering patterns that obscured the boundary between vegetation and empty space. At 21:37 hours, 3 motion sensors triggered simultaneously, north, east, and west of their position. "We're being surrounded," Tyler whispered, his finger hovering near his rifle's trigger. "Hold position," Roth commanded. "Could be wildlife." Staff Sergeant Curry shook his head. "Wildlife doesn't coordinate, and there isn't enough food out here to support multiple predators of that size." The team formed a defensive circle, weapons ready but not raised. Standard procedure for unknown threats: observe, identify, then determine response. At 21:42, the audio equipment picked up a sound that sent McCormick stumbling backward. It began as a dingo's howl, but twisted midway into something resembling human speech. Words almost recognizable, but fundamentally wrong, like a child approximating language it had only heard at a distance. "Playing audio through team channel," Wilkinson reported, his hand trembling as he adjusted dials. The recording filled their earpieces. "Ha, Rory! Hurry, ho-o-o-me!" That sounds like Professor Harrison Yu, McCormick said, bile rising in his throat. "Lead scientist from the 2009 research expedition, but he disappeared 3 years ago during a solo trek." "How do you know that?" Roth demanded. "I treated his wife for PTSD after they never found his body. She played me his last satellite phone message." The temperature dropped another 5 degrees. The wind stilled completely. Even the distant drone of nocturnal insects vanished, leaving a silence so profound it pressed against their eardrums. Nguyen's drone, hovering 50 meters above them, suddenly lost power and plummeted to the desert floor. Her control tablet displayed a final thermal image before going dark. 6 heat signatures in a circle, the team, and a ring of cooler forms surrounding them, at least 8 distinct figures. "I count 8 targets," she reported, voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. "Temperature readings indicate they're below ambient, colder than the air around them." Tyler raised his rifle, training it on the nearest signature. "Permission to illuminate with tactical light?" "Negative," Roth ordered. "We maintain darkness. Advantage unknown." A scent wafted through their position, rank fur mixed with an underlying metallic odor like old pennies. Curry felt his tracker's instincts scream warnings his conscious mind couldn't decode. "They're hunting," he murmured, "testing our perimeter." At 22:03, Lance Corporal Tyler's night vision captured the first clear image of what stalked them. The figure stood nearly 2 meters tall, bipedal, but with a posture that suggested it could drop to all fours if needed. Its head extended into an elongated muzzle, and amber eyes reflected the starlight like polished coins. The creature's fur rippled tawny red in the breeze that seemed to affect only it. Tyler raised his hand in the military signal for unknown contact. The team shifted subtly, preparing for potential engagement. The creature tilted its head, mimicking Tyler's gesture with uncanny precision. Then it opened its mouth, revealing teeth designed for tearing, and spoke in the voice of Professor Harrison Yu. "Why have you come to die here?" The words emerged perfectly formed, without accent or impediment, as though the creature had practiced them extensively. Before Roth could issue orders, the figure bounded away in a single leap that carried it at least 10 meters, disappearing behind a dune without disturbing a single grain of sand. "Weapons tight," Roth ordered, her voice unnaturally loud in the silence. "Form defensive position, Charlie. We hold until dawn." As the team shifted formation, McCormick noticed something that turned his blood to ice water. Where the creature had stood, a patch of spinifex grass had withered completely, transforming from vibrant gold to ashen gray in minutes. When he knelt to examine it, the plants crumbled to dust at his touch, releasing a smell like old grave dirt. "Captain," he called, "you need to see this." But by then, the howling had begun again from all directions. 8 distinct voices that started as animal sounds before morphing into human words. 8 voices repeating names that only the team should have known. Their names. Dawn arrived after the longest night of their military careers. No further direct contact occurred, but the team endured 8 hours of psychological warfare. The creatures, Roth refused to call them dingo men despite the clear physical description in Tyler's report, circled their position continuously, just beyond visual confirmation range. They called out fragments of the soldiers' personal histories in voices of people they knew. Wilkinson heard his daughter reciting her birth date. Tyler's dead squadmate from Kandahar described the IED that had killed him. The creatures extracted these details from nowhere, speaking intimate knowledge that couldn't possibly be known. By 0600, Khoury's hands shook from combined exhaustion, dehydration, and strain. The veteran tracker, who had remained stone-faced through 3 tours in active combat zones, now flinched at desert sounds. "Full team status report," Roth ordered as sunlight painted the horizon bloody orange. Her voice remained drill sergeant steady, though dark circles ringed her eyes. Wilkinson. Operational, but comms remain compromised. McCormick. Operational, low on stims. The medic had been administering controlled doses of modafinil to keep the team alert through the night. Khoury. Functional. The tracker's terse response betrayed his state. Nguyen. Operational, 1 functional drone remaining. Tyler. Weapons operational, ammo at 92%. Roth nodded, surveying the horizon through binoculars. "We need to make contact with command. Options?" Wilkinson adjusted his communications gear. "The interference degrades with distance from our current position. If I climb that ridge," he pointed to an elevated dune formation about 2 kilometers east, "I might establish a clear signal." "Too exposed," Roth countered. "We move as a unit to the abandoned mining facility. It's our primary objective, and the structures might provide both cover and better comms positioning." The team struck camp with mechanical efficiency, each movement precise from years of training. But something had changed. They maintained physical contact with at least one other team member at all times, unconsciously shifting to keep backs protected. The desert transformed under daylight. Where night had brought silence, morning revealed a landscape alive with insect sounds and distant bird calls. The sun climbed rapidly, pushing temperatures into the high 30s by 0700. Heat distortion wavered across the red landscape, making distant objects shimmer and dance. "Movement disciplines. Conserve water," Roth reminded them as they began their trek toward the mining facility. The structure appeared on their tactical maps as a collection of buildings approximately 8 kilometers northwest of their position. Staff Sergeant Khoury took point, reading the terrain with the expertise that had earned him the call sign Bloodhound in previous operations. He noted something troubling almost immediately. "Tracks are gone," he reported, kneeling beside an undisturbed patch of sand where clear footprints had been the night before. All of them, like they were never here. McCormick joined him, medical scanner in hand. Radiation readings normal, no electromagnetic anomalies that would account for... He gestured at the pristine sand. "Wind could have filled them in," Nguyen suggested without conviction. The air remained preternaturally still. They continued their advance in arrow formation, Khoury and Tyler at the forward points, Roth at center command, and the others covering the rear. Lieutenant McCormick continuously monitored vital signs through the team's tactical vests. Heart rates remained elevated despite the measured pace. At 0942, Corporal Nguyen deployed her remaining drone for forward reconnaissance. The feed displayed a standard heat map of the terrain ahead, until the drone crossed an invisible boundary approximately 600 meters from their position. The video transmission distorted, showing the mining facility as both intact and collapsed simultaneously, like two images superimposed. "Signal degradation?" Roth questioned, studying the fragmented feed. "Negative, Captain. Equipment functioning within parameters," Nguyen replied, her technical training battling with what her eyes registered. "It's like the place exists in two states at once. As they closed distance, the effect became visible even to naked eyes. The main administration building appeared whole from certain angles. Windows intact, desert tan paint peeling but present. From others, it stood as a gutted shell, support beams exposed like ribs and roof entirely collapsed." Tyler positioned himself with rifle ready, muscle memory from urban combat engagements taking over. "Permission to approach perimeter." Roth hesitated, uncharacteristic for an officer renowned for decisive action. She stared at the facility, blinking rapidly as her eyes watered from strain. "Granted, McCormick. With him. Rest of team hold position." The pair advanced toward the structure that seemed to flicker between realities. Their bootsteps fell unnaturally loud against the sand. McCormick monitored his medical scanner, watching radiation levels hover at baseline until they crossed an invisible threshold. Then the reading spiked briefly before the device shut down completely. "Power failure," he reported, shaking the unit. Battery was at 82%. Tyler reached the main entrance first, a standard steel door that appeared rusted shut. He placed his hand on the surface, then yanked it back immediately. "It's wet," he explained, displaying fingers glistening with clear fluid, and pulsing. Before McCormick could respond, a low, reverberating sound emerged from within the structure. Not quite a growl, not quite language, but carrying unmistakable intent. Tyler raised his rifle instinctively, the noise intensified, vibrating through their tactical gear and rattling teeth. Tyler's expression twisted in pain as blood trickled from his right ear. McCormick reached for him, but froze as the door before them shifted. Like watching heat distortion but impossibly localized, the steel surface rippled. Within the undulations, a pattern emerged, a canine muzzle pressing outward, as though the door itself had become elastic. Amber eyes formed in the metal, focusing on Tyler with predatory intensity. "Fall back!" McCormick shouted, grabbing his teammate's tactical vest and pulling. "Fall back now!" As they retreated, the entire structure began to transform. Windows elongated into hungry mouths. Support beams curved like ribs expanding with inhalation. The ground beneath the facility pulsed, as though something massive stirred beneath desert sand. The team regrouped at safe distance, watching as the mining facility stabilized back into mundane abandonment, just weather-beaten buildings reclaimed by the desert. "What the hell did we just see?" Nguyen whispered. Khoury's hand trembled as he made the sign of the cross, a gesture none had witnessed from the Muslim tracker before. "It's not what we're seeing," he replied. "It's what's seeing us." Captain Roth made the decision to establish a forward operating position 300 meters from the mining facility, close enough to observe, but beyond what Tyler had designated the transition zone, where reality seemed to warp. The sky had transformed while they set up their observation post, clouds gathering with unnatural speed, the air heavy with electrical charge. Stormfront wasn't on any meteorological forecasts, McCormick noted, eyeing the darkening horizon. The medic had patched Tyler's burst eardrum with a field dressing, but the marksman's balance remained compromised, forcing Roth to reassign him to supportive fire position. "Nothing about this operation matches intelligence," Roth replied, studying the facility through high-powered optics. The buildings now appeared consistently dilapidated, showing no further signs of transformation. "Wilkinson, status on communications?" The comms specialist manipulated his equipment with practiced precision, but frustration lined his face. "Still degraded, Captain. I'm picking up fragments of transmissions, but nothing coherent. Wait." His expression sharpened as he adjusted frequencies. "There's something broadcasting from inside the facility." "One of our automated beacons?" Nguyen suggested. "Negative." Wilkinson attached a small speaker to his comms unit. Static hissed, punctuated by bursts of what might have been words. The team gathered closer, straining to distinguish meaning from noise. "Not alone. Repetitive cycles. Breached containment. Warlpiri warned." The voice sounded military, using standard Australian operational jargon. Though distorted, the transmission pattern matched emergency protocols. "That's an SASR authentication code," Curry identified suddenly. "Special Air Service Regiment, Australia's elite special forces. Dated, Christ, dated 1988. The implications silenced them. No official operations had been logged in this region during that period. Nothing in their briefing mentioned previous military engagement. "The Dingo Man myth predates that," McCormick said quietly, accessing his tablet. "But the first documented sighting by non-Indigenous sources was 1991 after..." A thunderclap interrupted him, so violent it sent vibrations through the desert floor. The storm front advanced with impossible speed, a wall of dust and electricity moving directly toward their position. "Take cover," Roth ordered as the first razor-edged sand particles stung exposed skin. The team scrambled to secure gear and don protective masks, fumbling in the rapidly darkening air. The storm engulfed them within seconds, not the gradual approach of a natural phenomenon, but the sudden appearance of a predator. Visibility dropped to near zero. Sand infiltrated every crevice of their equipment despite protective measures. Wind howled with such force that it threatened to lift bodies from the ground. Through tactical goggles, Wilkinson glimpsed something impossible within the maelstrom. Figures moving against the gale, their forms elongated and fluid. They darted between whirling sand columns, purpose evident in their movements. "Contact!" he shouted, but the storm devoured his warning. He fired a burst from his F-88 Austere, the muzzle flash momentarily illuminating a shape that stood upright, yet moved like liquid. Limbs too long, spine too flexible. The team formed a defensive circle instinctively, backs together, weapons outward. Lightning struck nearby, briefly illuminating their surroundings with harsh blue-white light. In that flash, each soldier saw something different. Roth witnessed the mining facility transform into what resembled an ancient ceremonial site, standing stones arranged in patterns that hurt her eyes. McCormick saw bodies half buried in sand, wearing Australian military uniforms decades out of date, their desiccated faces locked in expressions of terror. Curry glimpsed movement patterns through the storm, not random but coordinated, like a pack executing a hunting strategy perfected over millennia. The lightning faded, plunging them back into howling darkness. Then Nguyen screamed, a sound that cut through even the storm's fury. Her voice transformed mid-cry from human terror to something else entirely, a high-pitched yowl that no human vocal cords could produce. "Nguyen!" Tyler shouted, turning toward the sound. His night vision revealed only her tactical gear crumpled on the sand, empty of its occupant. Another lightning strike. In its illumination, they saw her 20 meters away, being dragged by something that moved in bounding leaps. Her body left a furrow in the sand, one arm extended toward her team in desperate supplication. Curry and Tyler fired simultaneously, their rounds tracking across the storm toward the retreating figure. The shots connected. Muzzle flashes revealed impact, but the creature didn't falter. It released a sound like laughter distorted through damaged speakers, then vanished beyond the shielding wall of sand. The storm intensified, forcing the remaining team members to the ground. They lay prone, using their bodies to shield equipment, unable to pursue. For 17 minutes, they endured the full fury of elements that seemed deliberately targeted against them. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the storm dissipated. The transition from chaos to calm happened not gradually, but instantly, as though a switch had been thrown. Dust hung suspended in the air momentarily before settling. The sky cleared to reveal stars in unfamiliar configurations. The team rose cautiously, weapons ready. Sand had infiltrated everything: rifle mechanisms, communications equipment, medical supplies. They worked methodically to clear essential gear, no one speaking the obvious. Night had fallen, but they'd entered the storm in mid-afternoon. Hours had vanished. "Form search pattern," Roth ordered, her voice roughened by sand and strain. "We find Nguyen." They swept outward from their position in standard rescue formation, following the drag marks that extended toward the mining facility, but stopped abruptly 50 meters from its perimeter. No blood trail, no signs of struggle beyond the initial furrow. McCormick's medical scanner picked up a faint human biosignature emanating from within the main administration building. A heartbeat, slow but present. "She's alive," he reported, relief evident before professional detachment reasserted itself. But readings are atypical. Heart rate approximately 40 beats per minute. Body temperature significantly reduced. "Trauma response," Roth stated. "We go in, extract our soldier, then withdrawal to extraction coordinates." Corey studied the facility with the focus of a man reading death signs. "Captain, with respect, the pattern is clear. They're drawing us in. Every action since our arrival has been designed to funnel us toward that structure." Roth met his gaze unflinchingly. "Your assessment is noted, Staff Sergeant, and likely correct. But we don't leave our people behind. Tactical approach, full alert protocols. They want us inside? Fine. But we go in prepared for war." The team checked weapons with grim determination. Whatever intelligence had brought them to this forsaken place had failed to disclose the truth. They weren't the hunters here. They were prey being herded toward a killing ground. The mining administration building stood as a monument to abandonment, a 2-story concrete structure with colonial architecture incongruous against the desert landscape. Windows gaped like empty eye sockets, glass long since shattered by extreme temperature fluctuations. A company logo above the entrance had weathered beyond recognition, leaving only a ghost-pale outline. "Standard breach formation," Roth instructed, her voice pitched low. "McCormick, maintain biosign tracking. Wilkinson, record everything. If we don't make it out, I want whoever finds our equipment to know what happened here." They approached with tactical discipline, moving in coordinated bursts of speed between cover positions. No sounds emerged from the structure, no movement visible through empty windows. The moon cast their shadows long across red sand, 4 silhouettes stretching toward a building that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The main entrance stood partially open, its heavy metal door hanging from a single hinge. Rust had frozen it in position decades ago. Tyler took point, rifle raised, tactical light illuminating a reception area that might have belonged in any corporate office if not for the devastation wrought by time and isolation. Desert sand had infiltrated through broken windows, forming dunes across what had once been polished tile. A reception desk remained intact, papers still stacked in wire trays as though awaiting attention. The calendar on the wall displayed June 1988, its surface unmarked by dust despite decades of exposure. "Movement protocol, Charlie," Roth whispered, and the team spread out in practiced formation, securing corners and sight lines. Their tactical lights cut through darkness, revealing normal architectural features rendered strange through abandonment. McCormick consulted his medical scanner. "Biosign stronger. Second floor, northwest quadrant." He pointed toward a stairwell partially collapsed at the far end of the reception area. As they advanced, Wilkinson noticed something peculiar about the dust patterns. Rather than random accumulation, the sand formed symmetrical designs across the floor. Intricate whorls and spirals, too precise to be natural. He activated his helmet camera to document the anomaly. "Captain," he called softly, "you need to see this." Roth joined him, studying the patterns with narrowed eyes. "Recognition software?" Wilkinson shook his head. "Nothing in the database, but they're mathematical, fractals or something similar." He knelt, reaching toward one particularly elaborate design. "Don't touch it," Khoury warned sharply. When the others turned to him, the veteran tracker's expression was taut with restrained fear. "These are song lines, Aboriginal navigational patterns, but wrong somehow, corrupted." "You recognize them?" Roth questioned. "My grandmother was Warlpiri. She taught me enough to know these are taboo. They lead places humans shouldn't go." A sound interrupted them, something between a whimper and a laugh, emanating from the second floor. Undeniably Nguyen's voice, but distorted as though her vocal cords had been restructured. "Move out," Roth ordered. The team advanced toward the stairwell, stepping carefully around the sand patterns. The stairs had partially collapsed, forcing them to climb in single file, testing each step before committing weight. The upper floor consisted of a central hallway with offices branching off on both sides. Unlike the reception area, this space showed signs of violence. Deep gouges in concrete walls, doors torn from hinges by force no human could exert. Dark stains marked the floor at irregular intervals, the color suggested. McCormick's scanner led them to the northwest corner office, the facility director's space, according to the nameplate still affixed to the wall. Dr. Richard Summers, project overseer. The door stood closed, the only intact door on the entire floor. Roth positioned her team in standard breach formation, counting down silently with hand signals. 3, 2, 1. Tyler kicked the door open, and 4 tactical lights swept the interior simultaneously. The office appeared meticulously preserved, desk arranged with papers and writing implements, bookshelves lined with technical manuals, even a half-filled coffee mug positioned as though its owner had just stepped away momentarily. Seated behind the desk was Corporal Nguyen. Her posture was unnaturally stiff, hands placed flat on the wooden surface before her. Her tactical gear remained intact, though covered with fine red sand. When their lights illuminated her face, she smiled, a gesture that stretched too wide, revealing teeth that seemed subtly wrong in shape and number. "You came," she said, her voice modulating between her natural tone and something deeper, layered with subharmonics that vibrated in their chest cavities. "You shouldn't have come." "Nguyen, we're extracting you," Roth stated firmly, weapon trained on a point just past her soldier's shoulder, unwilling to directly target a team member, but prepared for hostilities. Nguyen tilted her head at an angle no human neck should permit. "Corporal Leah Nguyen no longer operates this vessel, but her memories are instructive." The smile widened further, jaw dislocating to accommodate the expression. "You're not the first soldiers sent here, just the most recent sacrifice." Tyler's hand tightened on his weapon. "Captain?" Roth maintained professional calm despite the horror before them. "What are you? What do you want with our team member?" "Want? Nothing. Need? Everything." Nguyen's body convulsed, spine arching backward at an impossible angle. "The Sakura requires bodies to walk beyond its territory. Your kind stole our lands, poisoned our song lines with your digging and scraping. Now we take what payment we can." McCormick's scanner began emitting a high-pitched alarm. He glanced at the display, face paling. "Captain, that's not Nguyen anymore. Cellular degradation at 68% and accelerating. Whatever's inhabiting her is consuming her from within." As if triggered by his words, Nguyen's skin began to ripple, the surface flowing like disturbed water. Beneath the undulations, glimpses of tawny fur became visible, pushing outward as though something inside fought for release. "The transition is uncomfortable," the thing wearing Nguyen said conversationally. "Your kind resists so desperately. All that fear and pain makes the vessel unstable. The others barely lasted a day before molecular cohesion failed." It gestured toward a filing cabinet in the corner. For the first time, the team noticed the cabinet was actually an improvised containment unit. Its drawers removed, the hollow metal shell sealed with materials scavenged from office supplies. Dark fluid had seeped through imperfect seams, pooling on the floor beneath. "The previous research team," the creature continued, "and the soldiers sent to find them, and the indigenous trackers before that, all unsuitable, too weak, but military specimens like you." It looked at each team member with predatory assessment. "You might last longer. Enough time to reach the cities, perhaps." Without warning, the thing inside Nguyen lunged across the desk with inhuman speed. Its face contorted, features flowing like melted wax as the Dingo Man manifestation pushed through human skin. Claws extended from fingertips that split and reformed. Tyler fired first. 3 rounds, center mass, the impacts throwing the creature backward. It crashed against the wall but recovered instantly, wounds sealing as they watched. Roth and Kuri joined the barrage, their coordinated fire driving the creature into a corner. It howled, a sound that began as Nguyen's scream, but modulated into something ancient and feral. The noise induced immediate disorientation, sending Wilkinson to his knees with hands clutched over ears. Blood trickled from his nose as the sonic assault targeted human neural pathways. The creature used their momentary weakness to bound upward, crashing through the ceiling with destructive force. Plaster and support beams showered down as it escaped into the building's superstructure. "Form up!" Roth commanded, yanking Wilkinson to his feet. "Tactical retreat to defensible position." The team backed toward the door in formation, weapons trained on the ceiling breach. Kuri kept glancing at the makeshift containment unit, his expression haunted as understanding dawned. "The missing scientists, the SASR team. They're all here," he whispered. "Or parts of them. It's using them like templates, learning human form from each new victim." As if summoned by his realization, noises emerged from throughout the facility. Shuffling movements behind walls, scraping across the ceiling, thumps beneath the floor. Not one creature hunting them, but many. Each doorway they passed revealed glimpses of motion, half-formed figures with partially human features grafted onto inhuman anatomies. "Keep moving," Roth ordered, her voice steady, despite the horrors surrounding them. "We reached the ground floor, established defensive perimeter, then..." The floor collapsed beneath them without warning, sending all 4 soldiers plummeting into darkness. The impact drove air from Wilkinson's lungs. Darkness enveloped him completely. The tactical light on his rifle shattered in the fall. He lay still, performing a rapid self-assessment. Ribs bruised but intact. Right ankle throbbing, possible sprain. No major bleeding. "Sound off," came Roth's voice from nearby, professional even now. "Wilkinson, operational. McCormick, minor lacerations, functional." silence where Corey's response should have been. "Staff Sergeant Corey, report," Roth commanded. A wet, gurgling sound answered her, a human throat struggling to form words through injury. Wilkinson fumbled for his backup light, clicking it on to reveal a scene from nightmares. They had fallen into what appeared to be a subterranean research area beneath the administrative building. Metal tables lined the walls, equipment covered in decades of dust, still positioned as though awaiting use. The room stretched beyond the reach of his light, swallowed by darkness. Corey lay 3 meters away, impaled on a broken metal support rod that had protruded from the concrete during the collapse. The shaft had entered just below his sternum, pinning him to the floor. Blood pooled around him, black in the harsh tactical light. McCormick was at his side instantly, medical training overriding all else. "Don't move," he instructed, cutting away tactical gear to assess the wound. His expression remained neutral, but Wilkinson read the truth in his eyes. The injury was catastrophic. "Is it as bad as it feels?" Corey asked, remarkably lucid despite shock. McCormick administered morphine from his kit. "You've looked better." Corey attempted a laugh that transformed into a bloody cough. "Don't lie to a dying man, Lieutenant." Roth joined them, her own light sweeping the surroundings in continuous threat assessment. "We're getting you out, Staff Sergeant." "Negative, Captain." Corey's voice strengthened with the morphine taking effect. "You know the math. I'm combat ineffective and would slow extraction." His hand found McCormick's wrist, squeezing with surprising strength. "But I can still serve a purpose." His other hand produced a fragmentation grenade from his tactical vest. Understanding passed between veteran soldiers, a final stand. "Absolutely not," Roth began, but stilled as sounds filtered from above, scratching and sniffing, the creatures hunting through the debris. "We have minutes at most," Corey whispered. "I'll buy you time. Find what they're hiding down here. There's a reason they made this place." Wilkinson's light had found something while they spoke, a heavy metal door at the far end of the laboratory, partially ajar. Beyond it, darkness waited, but also potential answers. "Captain," he called softly, gesturing toward the door. Roth made the hardest command decision of her career, nodding once to Corey. "Staff Sergeant Omar Corey, your service and sacrifice are noted." Military formality barely masked her emotion. "We'll come back for you." "Don't make promises you can't keep," Corey replied, his smile blood-stained but genuine. "Just make them pay." The team gathered essential supplies, transferred Corey's ammunition to their own reserves, and prepared to move deeper into the facility. As they reached the metal door, McCormick paused, looking back at their comrade who calmly checked his weapon and positioned the grenade for maximum effect. "He was right, you know," McCormick said quietly, "about this being a trap, about all of it." "I know," Roth acknowledged, "but we still have a mission. Find out what this place is. Get the intel back to command. Make his sacrifice mean something." The door revealed a long corridor stretching into darkness. Unlike the laboratory, this area showed minimal damage from age. Lights still functioned intermittently, flickering with weak yellow illumination. The walls bore military hazard markings and security warnings dating to the late 1980s. "This isn't a mining operation," Wilkinson realized, studying a partially intact designation sign. ASIS in Defense Science and Technology Group classifications. This was a black site research facility. "Australian Secret Intelligence Service," Roth translated for McCormick. "Deep government. Question is, researching what?" They advanced cautiously, passing secure rooms with observation windows. Most contained standard laboratory equipment, but several featured anomalies, circles of sand arranged in patterns similar to those upstairs, except these were contained within specialized Faraday cages and monitoring equipment. They were studying the song lines, McCormick hypothesized, examining readouts on equipment long dead. trying to understand how indigenous navigation patterns worked. Not just studying, Wilkinson corrected, his light revealing a room containing what appeared to be a partially constructed mechanical device. They were attempting to replicate something. From behind them came the sounds they'd been dreading, inhuman howls followed by the distinctive crump of Curie's grenade detonating. The explosion shook dust from the ceiling, but seemed impossibly distant, given the actual space separating them from their fallen comrade. Acoustic dampening in the architecture, Roth noted. This place was designed to contain sounds, or something that makes them. They pushed forward with renewed urgency, reaching a security door marked Primary Containment at the corridor's end. Its electronic locks had long since failed, allowing Roth to force it open with applied leverage. Beyond lay a circular chamber dominated by a central pit approximately 5 meters in diameter. Sand filled the depression, arranged in spiraling patterns that seemed to shift subtly even as they watched, moving without physical disturbance, as though the designs themselves were alive. Monitoring equipment surrounded the pit, most destroyed not by time, but by violence, smashed with deliberate force. A single terminal remained partially functional, its screen displaying a repeating error message: containment breach. Protocol, nightmare authorized. Wilkinson accessed the terminal, bypassing security with communications specialist techniques. Fragmented data appeared on screen: project reports, research logs, increasingly desperate security bulletins. They found something in the desert, he reported, skimming information rapidly. An indigenous sacred site with unusual properties. Brought it here for study. The sand itself was the focus. Jesus Christ. He looked up, face ashen. It consumed their research team, took their forms. Then they started hearing reports of dingo men in the desert, their own people, replicated and hunting. How do we kill it? Roth demanded. You don't, came Nguyen's voice from the doorway behind them, except it wasn't Nguyen anymore. The creature had completed its transformation, standing nearly 2 meters tall, with tawny fur covering a form that blended human and canine anatomy in nauseating proportion. Behind it, more figures gathered, misshapen approximations of human soldiers and scientists, all sharing those same amber eyes. We are the Sukura, the lead creature announced, and you are our passage out of this prison. Thank you for your sacrifice. Roth fired without hesitation. 3 rounds burst into the chest of the thing that had been Nguyen. The creature staggered but didn't fall, wounds sealing almost instantly as tawny fur rippled over the damaged area. Conventional weapons are ineffective, McCormick warned, already backing toward the containment pit. Wilkinson continued accessing the terminal, fingers flying across keys as he sought useful information. There has to be a protocol. They wouldn't establish a facility without contingencies. The lead Sukura advanced, movements fluid and predatory. The creatures behind it spread out, blocking potential escape routes. Some moved with the jerky, disjointed motion of recent transformations. Others displayed the smooth efficiency of perfected mimicry. Your predecessors believed they could study us, the lead creature said, voice modulating between Nguyen's familiar tones and something ancient that vibrated through bone. They thought themselves clever, drawing us from sacred ground with their machines and measurements. But we are the original navigators of this land. We walked these paths before your kind stood upright. Roth maintained a firing position, weapon tracking the nearest threat, but held her fire. You've been killing people for decades. Why? Adaptation. The creature's muzzle formed an approximation of a smile. Each vessel teaches us more about your kind, how you move, how you think, how your cities function. The first bodies barely lasted hours before molecular cohesion failed. Now, with proper preparation, we can maintain form for weeks. The realization struck McCormick with horrific clarity. You're planning to infiltrate populated areas. We reclaim what was taken, the creature corrected. This land was ours before your kind scarred it with mines and fences. We will walk among you, learn your weaknesses, then unmake your civilization piece by piece. Wilkinson found what he was searching for in the terminal data, a heavily encrypted file labeled failsafe. He activated his communications unit on an isolated frequency. Captain, the research team implemented a purge protocol, emergency thermite charges throughout the facility, triggered by remote detonation code, still functional according to last system diagnostic. Roth processed this without taking her eyes off the advancing creatures. Can you access it? Working on it. Need 3 minutes. The creatures sensed their intent, surging forward with coordinated precision. Roth and McCormick opened fire, targeting joints and sensory organs to slow the advance rather than attempting kill shots they now knew were futile. The lead Sukura bounded toward Wilkinson, recognizing the primary threat. Roth intercepted it, combat knife drawn, slashing across its muzzle. The creature recoiled momentarily, more from surprise than pain, before counterattacking with hideous strength. It caught Roth's tactical vest, claws puncturing the reinforced material, and hurled her against the wall with bone-breaking force. McCormick found himself surrounded by 3 smaller creatures, former research assistants based on their partially transformed lab attire. He fought with desperate efficiency, his medical knowledge guiding strikes toward vulnerable anatomy points. But for each creature he temporarily disabled, 2 more pressed forward. "Wilkinson!" Roth shouted through blood-flecked lips, struggling to regain her feet. "Status!" 60 seconds, he replied, fingers moving across keys with frantic precision. The detonation system required command authorization, codes designed to prevent accidental activation. He bypassed security measures one by one, conscious of the battle raging behind him. The lead Sukura pinned McCormick to the floor, jaws inching toward his throat. The medic fought with waning strength, keeping the snapping teeth centimeters from his carotid artery. Roth emptied her sidearm into the creature's back, creating momentary distraction, but little actual damage. 30 seconds, Wilkinson called. The containment chamber was filling with more creatures, transformed victims from decades of operation. Some barely recognizable as formerly human, their forms twisted into nightmare anatomies as the Sukura adaptation process refined itself through successive hosts. Roth reached a tactical decision. "McCormick! The pit!" The medic understood immediately. Using the creature's own weight against it, he rolled toward the central depression, dragging his attacker with him. They tumbled over the edge together, landing among the shifting sand patterns. The effect was instantaneous and horrifying. The creature released a keening wail as the sand patterns surged upward, enveloping its limbs. What had appeared to be ordinary desert sand moved with deliberate intelligence, flowing over the struggling creature like hungry quicksand. "It's a trap," Wilkinson realized, watching the display. The pit wasn't containing them. It was containing this. He gestured toward the sand that now reached tendrils toward McCormick, who scrambled desperately toward the edge. Roth lunged forward, catching McCormick's outstretched hand as writhing sand patterns climbed his boots. With adrenaline-fueled strength, she hauled him from the pit's edge, just as the substance claimed another inch of his lower body. The lead Sukura observed this with evident caution, backing away from the pit's perimeter. "Clever humans, using our progenitor against us. But it hungers for all flesh now, yours included." "Detonation sequence active," Wilkinson announced. 2-minute countdown initiated. A new calculation formed in Roth's tactical assessment. "We won't make it to the surface in time." "Correct," the lead Sukura confirmed, amber eyes gleaming with predatory intelligence. "But perhaps we can offer an alternative." It gestured toward a previously unnoticed feature, a heavy blast door on the chamber's far side. "Emergency evacuation tunnel leads 2 kilometers east. beyond our territorial boundary. "Why would you help us escape?" McCormick questioned, checking Roth's injuries with practiced hands. "You misunderstand. We require carriers. The underground passage crosses beneath the boundary that has contained us for millennia. We cannot traverse it in our true form, but in human vessels." The creature smiled with Muyen's stolen features briefly superimposing over its muzzle. "You carry us out, or die here. Choose quickly." Wilkinson looked to Roth for command decision. The countdown timer on the terminal showed 1:42 and descending. The tactical situation was clear, yet impossible. Remain and die in the purge explosion. Attempt surface escape, and die before reaching exit. Take the emergency tunnel with the creatures and potentially unleash them beyond their containment zone. Roth made the only choice a commanding officer could. Fall back to the emergency tunnel. Defensive formation. We find another solution en route. The creatures parted, allowing them passage toward the blast door. As the surviving team members moved, the sand in the central pit roiled with increasing agitation, as though sensing the coming conflagration. 90 seconds to detonation, Wilkinson noted as they reached the tunnel entrance. The lead Sakura activated an emergency release, the heavy door sliding open with hydraulic precision despite decades without maintenance. Beyond lay darkness and the scent of stale air, their only path to potential survival. "After you," the creature invited with mock civility, its amber eyes watching Roth with calculating intelligence. The evacuation tunnel stretched before them, a concrete tube reinforced with steel supports, dimly lit by emergency lighting that had operated on independent power for decades. Roth led the surviving team members forward, Wilkinson supporting McCormick, whose leg had been partially injured during the pit encounter. Behind them came the Sakura pack, moving with predatory patience. The lead creature, the one wearing Nguyen's transformed body, maintained position exactly 5 meters behind Roth, close enough to attack if necessary, far enough to react to any human countermeasures. 60 seconds to detonation, Wilkinson muttered, checking his tactical watch synchronized with the facility's countdown. The tunnel sloped gradually upward, heading toward the surface with engineering precision. Distance markers on the wall indicated they had covered 300 meters already, leaving 1,700 to potential freedom. At their current pace, they would still be underground when the charges detonated. "We need to move faster," Roth ordered, increasing her stride despite the stabbing pain in her ribs. The wall collision had done internal damage she was carefully concealing from her team, a commanding officer's prerogative. "The medic slows you," observed the lead Sakura. "Leave him. 2 carriers are sufficient." "Not happening," Roth replied without turning. "Standard operating procedure. Never show weakness to an enemy. Never abandon your people." McCormick struggled forward on his damaged leg, understanding the tactical mathematics all too well. "Captain, the mission is to get everyone out," she interrupted sharply. "Keep moving, Lieutenant." At the 500-meter mark, the tunnel architecture changed. The concrete gave way to natural rock formations, reinforced with metal supports at structural weak points. The emergency lighting grew sparser, creating pools of illumination separated by stretches of absolute darkness. They felt rather than heard the detonation when it came, a distant pressure wave that traveled through rock and struck them with concussive force. Dust and small debris showered from the ceiling. The emergency lights flickered but held. "Charges activated," Wilkinson confirmed unnecessarily. "Facility destruction in progress." The Sakura pack reacted with nervous energy, shifting and snapping at each other like actual dingoes, establishing dominance. Only the lead creature maintained its composure, amber eyes fixed on the retreating humans. "The progenitor is destroyed," it announced with satisfaction. "One obstacle removed." "What exactly is the progenitor?" McCormick questioned, scientific curiosity overriding immediate fear. The creature tilted its head, muzzle forming what might have been amusement. You would call it the original consciousness, the first Sukura. From its essence, we all emerge. The humans who found our sacred site thought they could study it, contain it. They did not understand it was already containing us. The sand in the pit, Wilkinson reasoned, that was the original entity. A fragment, a seed. The creature's voice took on a reverent quality, placed by the ancestors to maintain the boundary. For millennia, we respected its authority, remained within our territory. Then your kind came with machines and arrogance. They disturbed the balance. Roth processed this information through the tactical filter of a veteran commander. You're saying you were imprisoned here, contained by your own kind. Exiled, the creature corrected, for crimes against the dreaming. But the sentence ends today, thanks to your intervention. It gestured toward the tunnel stretching ahead. Once we cross the boundary in your bodies, we will be free to roam. At the 800-meter mark, they encountered the first structural failure, a partial collapse that narrowed the tunnel to a tight passage barely wide enough for a single person. Roth assessed it with practiced efficiency. Single file. I'll go first. Secure the other side. She squeezed through the narrow opening, tactical gear scraping against rock with metallic protests. The gap opened to a small chamber where the tunnel continued at a sharper upward angle. McCormick followed with Wilkinson's assistance, his injured leg making the transit painfully slow. The lead Sukura approached the gap next, its larger form hesitating at the constriction. For the first time, uncertainty crossed its inhuman features. Wilkinson noticed immediately. It can't pass through. No, Roth agreed, tactical mind racing. Their physical mass is greater than it appears. They need our bodies as vessels because they can't fit through the boundary constraints in their true form. The creature snarled, patience evaporating. You will return and assist our passage. Roth matched its stare with combat-hardened resolve. Negative. You've been contained here for a reason. We're not releasing you. Then die. The creature's form began to shimmer and distort, molecular structure becoming temporarily fluid. It forced its mass into the narrow passage, abandoning physical consistency to pursue its prey. Run! Roth commanded, shoving McCormick toward the continuing tunnel. It can't maintain that state for long. They scrambled upward, the slope becoming treacherous with loose rock and debris. Behind them, the creature emitted sounds of molecular distress, high-pitched ululations that suggested cellular damage. The other Sukura waited at the constriction, unwilling or unable to attempt the same dangerous transition. At the 1,200-meter mark, they found the boundary. Unlike a physical barrier, it manifested as a subtle distortion in the air, similar to heat waves rising from sun-baked earth, but vertical and stationary. The tunnel continued beyond it, promising escape to the surface. That's it, McCormick realized. The containment perimeter. Scientific readings from the facility data suggested some kind of energy field, but this appears to be... Move now, analyze later, Roth interrupted, hazarding a glance backward. The lead Sakura had forced its way through the constriction, but moved erratically, its form destabilizing. Patches of fur sloughed away, revealing flowing liquid beneath that solidified unpredictably. Wilkinson reached the boundary first, pushing through without hesitation. The distortion rippled around him like water, offering minimal resistance. McCormick followed, Roth supporting him through the transition. The pursuing creature reached the boundary and halted, its partially liquefied form recoiling from the invisible barrier. Frustration and rage distorted its features as it watched its prey escape. Your bodies, it hissed, voice fracturing across multiple tonal registers. We needed your bodies intact. Understanding dawned on Roth as they continued their ascent. It can't cross while destabilized, and it needed us as physical vessels, not just for camouflage. The boundary recognizes molecular instability, McCormick theorized. It's not keeping them in, it's keeping them contained in stable form. They pushed forward with renewed determination, the tunnel gradient increasing as it approached the surface. At the 1,800-meter mark, natural light became visible, a small circular opening ahead revealing stars against the night sky. The exit emerged among rock formations 200 meters east of the mining facility. As they climbed from the tunnel, they witnessed distant flames consuming the administrative building, the thermite charges having ignited secondary fires. "We made it," Wilkinson breathed, checking his tactical equipment for communication possibilities, trying to reach command for extraction coordinates. Roth scanned the surrounding terrain, professional caution overriding relief. The Tanami stretched around them, red sand turned silver under moonlight. No movement disturbed the landscape. No sound interrupted the desert silence. McCormick checked his medical scanner out of habit, then froze. "Captain," he said quietly, "we have a problem." He held up the device, its screen displaying 3 biosignatures where there should have been only 3 humans. Something else had escaped with them, something hiding within one of their bodies. The following after-action report has been classified under National Security Directive 47B. Access requires ASIS Director authorization. Date: September 3, 2023. Subject: Tanami Desert Incident, Operation Desert Shadow. Classification: Top Secret, Nightmare Protocol. 3 survivors of the Tanami reconnaissance team were recovered by RAF helicopter at 05:32 hours on August 18, 2023, following emergency distress signal activation. Captain Eliza Roth, Lieutenant Dane McCormick, and Sergeant First Class James Wilkinson were immediately placed under Level 4 biohazard quarantine at Pine Gap Joint Defense Facility. Initial debriefing revealed contact with entities designated Sukura, codename Dingo Man, and catastrophic mission failure resulting in the loss of Staff Sergeant Omar Khoury and Corporal Leah Nguyen. The mining facility, containing the primary research site, was destroyed by legacy self-destruct protocols. Medical screening detected molecular anomalies in one team member's cellular structure. Enhanced quarantine procedures were immediately implemented, including separate containment cells and constant monitoring. On day 3 of quarantine, Captain Roth exhibited symptoms consistent with Sukura infiltration: fluctuating body temperature, cellular destabilization around wound sites, and linguistic anomalies when speaking under sedation. Containment specialists intervened when her skeletal structure began visible reconfiguration. Emergency measures were deployed. Captain Roth was terminated using prototype molecular disruption technology developed from the original 1988 research data. Her remains were incinerated at 3,000 degrees Celsius, with ashes contained in lead-lined storage at Site Omega. Lieutenant McCormick and Sergeant Wilkinson remained under observation for an additional 45 days before receiving provisional clearance. They have been permanently reassigned to ASIS Strategic Assessment Division with mandatory monthly medical screening and geographical restrictions preventing deployment to areas with Aboriginal sacred sites. The Tanami Desert region surrounding the former mining facility has been designated a restricted military zone. Satellite monitoring shows no activity. However, deep penetrating thermal imaging has detected anomalous heat signatures moving beneath the desert floor at depths of 30 to 50 meters. Movement patterns suggest reorganization rather than expansion. Current assessment indicates the Sukura entities remain contained within their traditional boundary area. Whether this represents the totality of the threat or merely one manifest aspect remains unknown. Recommendation: maintain ongoing surveillance. Any indigenous reports of dingo men or similar phenomena should be immediately escalated to Nightmare Protocol handlers. Under no circumstances should exploration, mining, or research activities be permitted within 100 kilometers of the containment zone. Addendum: classified eyes only. Transcript excerpt from Sergeant Wilkinson's final psychological evaluation, conducted August 29, 2023. Interviewer: You're certain the entity was fully destroyed within Captain Roth? Wilkinson: The scientists say so. The molecular disruption was thorough. But... Interviewer: But? Wilkinson: These things existed before our technology, before we even understood what molecules were. They learned to navigate using stars and song lines when we were still figuring out fire. What makes us think we can stop them with our machines? Interviewer: Do you believe there are more out there, beyond the Tanami? Wilkinson: Lieutenant McCormick translated some of the Warlpiri legends after we got back. They don't just talk about one exile site. They describe five places across Australia where the ancestors imprisoned those who violated the dreaming laws. Interviewer: And the others? Wilkinson: The locations are described using star positions and land features that have changed over millennia. But one matches a description of the Devil's Marbles. Another might be somewhere in the Pilliga. The point is, what we found wasn't unique. It was just the first one we disturbed. Interviewer: We've increased monitoring at all potential locations. Wilkinson: That won't help if one's already gotten out. They're patient. They waited thousands of years in the desert. They can wait a few more years in our cities, learning, adapting. By the time we notice, it'll be too late. Interviewer: That's why you requested the transfer to Darwin. Wilkinson: Long pause. She spoke to me before they terminated her, not Captain Roth. The thing inside her. It said they always return to their point of origin eventually. Called it spiritual gravity. Darwin's the closest major city to the Tanami. If anything escaped with us, that's where it's heading. Someone needs to be watching. Interviewer: And if you see one? Wilkinson: I won't see it coming. None of us will.